Welcome, everyone. We are here for the Society of Thoracic Surgeons Congenital Heart Surgery Database monthly webinar for Tuesday, December the 15th. First, our agenda, we'll have our welcome and introductions, and then per usual, I'll just provide a couple of STS updates. I don't have much information to give this week, this round. It'll look very familiar from our last call. Then I'll turn things over to IQVIA for their updates, and then we'll have opportunity for our user feedback. On the call with me today from STS, we have myself, we have Carol Crone, we also have Addie Dolan. Who else do we have? I think that's it in terms of STS staff. From our core group, we have Chastity, Leslie, and Janet. From IQVIA, we have Jeanette, Jean, Joe, Melanie. I think that's everyone from IQVIA. And then also we have two of our surgeon leaders joining us today. We have Dr. Meyer as well as Dr. Jacobs. So thank you everyone for joining me on today's call. So again, as for those that were able to join us on our last call, we did have the town hall type format where we did enable the raise hand function. We're going to do the same thing again today for those that maybe weren't able to talk or weren't able to make our last webinar and take advantage of our town hall meeting. We hope you're able to do that today. Again, please make sure you enable your microphone if you are going to have questions or if you want to speak. Also, what else? Please be sure to, we want to give you the opportunity to voice your opinions, give us your feedback. Let us know things that are working, what's not working. We would like to know what's critical to get your job done right now versus what you would like as an enhancement to the current report and the platform. So again, please feel free to provide your feedback during this time. We welcome your comments and your suggestions, and this is the opportunity for us to have an open conversation. STS, data managers, IQVIA all together, so we can all continue to work together to improve this platform and improve these reports and give you all the tools that you need to get your job done efficiently, effectively. So again, please feel free to raise your hand, talk. If you are not comfortable raising your hand, you can please also just type in your question via the Q&A function like we've done in the past. So please feel free to either raise your hand or type in your questions, and we'll answer all the questions that we can within the next hour. For our STS updates, again, these slides are going to look familiar from our last call for those that were able to join. As you all are aware, the 2020 harvest update was extended. Our new harvest close date is Friday, January 15th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. The notification for this harvest extension was sent out to participants on 11:30 on November the 30th. Our opt-out date for this harvest, for our 2020 harvest, is Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. Also, I just wanted to let you all know that the STS Combination Procedure Codes are listed, have been posted, and they are available out on the STS website. You can find those under the version 341 tab under the additional resources section, and I provided the link there to those to that document. Also, I wanted to clarify this: the primary procedure determination rules updated. I wanted to let you guys know this the primary procedure determination rules currently posted out on the STS website, as well as the rules. These are the rules that are found in your feedback report and the report overview. These rules were updated to add the Kawashima to the PSF rule, and they were also updated to add the hybrid approaches. And then we also have this additional rule: if a Kawashima is coded in combination with either the Glenn or Hemi-Fontan procedures, the Kawashima should be designated as the primary procedure. And again, here's a link to that document out on the STS website. And again, just to clarify, these rules have been added to the primary procedure determination document. Not all of these rules have yet been implemented into the primary procedure mismatch report. So Melanie is going to give an update about our primary procedure mismatch report here later on in the presentation. But again, just to clarify, this is just referring to the rules as currently posted on the website, not all of the rules that have currently been implemented into the primary procedure mismatch report. Also, these these rules will be initiated by CCRI and the harvest. So again, just to clarify. Again, just the primary procedure mismatch report. When looking at that primary procedure mismatch report within the IQVIA platform, just please be sure to review the report overview for that report in the resources section and the library section within the IQVIA platform. That document is updated and will explain the current functionality, what rules have been added to that report. So again, please review that document prior to looking at your primary procedure mismatch report, as not all of those hybrids and combinations, Kawashima, all of that has not yet been implemented into the primary procedure mismatch report, but it is coming. Just also a upgrade update, we are continuing to move forward. We are reviewing the intraoperative section of the data specifications. We started tackling the procedures last night. So we are currently reviewing the procedures. I feel like we may be there forever, but it is a work in progress. So we are continuing to move forward with our upgrade. Again, if you have any suggestions for upgrade, any things you'd like to see, again, as always, please feel free to email those to me directly. My email address is listed here. And I'll be sure to share those with the upgrade committee. And of course, our go live is scheduled for January 2022 for the upgrade. Just a quick reminder, the AQO, December 31st is the last day to claim your CEs. And also to be sure to get those that credit claimed by December 31st. Also, for anyone that was not able to attend AQO and you would still like access to AQO, you can purchase access to the online content through the STS resource library for the STS online education. So if you need access to that information, please feel free to email me directly, and I can get you in touch with education. And again, that access to AQO is available for purchase. Let's see. That's all that I have from the STS side. I'm going to turn things over to Joe for our IQVIA update, and then Melanie will give a quick overview as well.
All right, great. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm just going to give a few updates, some items that were released last month, as well as some items that are being targeted for an upcoming release. First, to start with the items that were released last month on November 12th, the missing variable report, STS 4296, the humate P units, those 3 variables showing up as missing in the MVR, and even though the dose 2 was set to 0, which shouldn't have been happening, and so that has been resolved as of November 12th. Also, STS 4404, the missing variable report was displaying the 365-day mortality status method as missing, even though it hadn't yet been a year since the surgery. And so some logic has been added to update that so that it considers the 1-year time period. In regard to the uploader, STS 4765, we added some text to the uploader page to help provide guidance for anyone who is using the direct data entry feature. So that information clarifies that any remaining uploads should be completed before beginning your direct data entry. And once you have completed your uploads, that you shouldn't be making any further edits or additions using the uploader, and anything from that point forward should be done using the direct data entry interface. And then STS 4955, for the anesthesia cases, the system will now check for either a surgeon NPI or an anesthesiologist NPI, not both. So as long as you have one or the other, you should not encounter an error message saying that you're missing that data. If an informational warning will still appear on the DQR if to let you know that if you have entered a anesthesiologist NPI and not a surgeon NPI, that the surgeon NPI is not present. But again, that will just be an informational warning and not an error of any sort. All right. And then some items that were updated in regard to the data quality report. The DQR will now display warning validation messages to alert users to review specific procedures that make up combination procedures. And you can see a list there on the screen of which warning validations have been added for the procedure combinations. And then just a note at the bottom there as well, that we are going to continue to add additional warning validations for the remaining combination procedures that are not listed there as well. And those are upcoming for a future release. All right, and then some items that are targeted for an upcoming release that we did want to bring to your attention. STS 4383, the missing variable report is saying that the secondary or supplemental payer is missing when the primary payer is either set to a charitable care foundation funding internal or charitable care foundation funding external. And so that is something that we are looking into and trying to resolve for you. And then STS 4508, for some migrated data, we are seeing situations where both a diagnosis or procedure is selected along with the missing option for diagnosis or procedure. And in those situations, it is causing unexpected items to appear on the missing variable report. So we are looking into a solution for that issue as well. And just the last note that we are always looking into anything that you have reported. So if you didn't see an item that you had reported listed here, it doesn't mean we're not looking into it. If you do have any questions regarding tickets that you've raised, please feel free to respond to those tickets to request an update. But we will provide additional information as it becomes available. And that does do it for me. So we're going to turn things over to Melanie for the next piece.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. So Leanne, I'll go ahead and just share my screen just to do a general overview, just to cover a couple of things that have been usual questions. And then, of course, I want to make sure that we allow enough time to address questions that you may have so we can also get that covered. So let me share my screen. And Leanne, just let me know when you're able to see. It should be the uploader interface.
Yes, ma'am, you're good.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so just a quick highlight, and for those that have probably already logged in after those updates, you'll see on the uploader interface that the item that Joe was just referring to regarding guidance text for users that will be using the IQVIA Direct data entry option, that we added specific guidance text on the uploader interface. So that is what was being noted in Joe's update. So just wanted to also point that out as a new item. But what I wanted to do was just common questions that come up. I just wanted to make sure that we share this information. So one of the things that we always would get some questions around is regarding the uploader submission card history details, specifically in regards to the counts. So just wanted to give a reminder in regards to when you're doing your uploader submissions, and over time, if you have records that are not updated that are included within that submission, those records are not going to be counted within this total count that you see here. So for example, if you have a new submission file that you have, let's say 100 records, and you initially load that into the system, you will see that the system is going to show you that 100 records out of potentially 100 records were submitted to the database if no critical errors were encountered, of course, because critical errors are always indicated by a red circle with a white X in the middle. Critical errors always will indicate that those identified records will not be saved to the database, and it will give you the specific information regarding those files. So I do have an example of that, so I'll just make sure that you all are aware. And just, I always like to make sure that we highlight those in particular, because those are the records that you want to make sure you're addressing because they're not being saved. And then if you have any errors that also are generated on the submission, you will see a yellow X. Those records are not prevented from going into the system. Those will save to the database, but it will have an associated error that you should review. And of course, that's going to be available on the DQR. And then the very last item is going to be the blue triangle, which indicates that warnings are available on that submission. So just wanted to highlight those. And then going back to the record count, with my previous example was, you have a new submission file and all 100 records or operations are brand new, never been submitted to the database. So in that instance, the expectation is that you would see that 100 records out of 100 records would display on this initial submission entry. Over time, if you resubmit those records and if there are no changes, you will see only the records that have updates or are considered brand new. You would see those counts associated on the uploader counts. So just wanted to make sure that I call that out. And of course, if there's any questions regarding that, please let us know. The other thing that we usually would get some questions on when reviewing the data quality report, and this is a sample, I went ahead and loaded it up already. This is a sample where I have a combination of critical errors and errors. And in this example, you see that I am being flagged because I am missing the primary diagnosis on this specific operation. And so I would need to make sure that I review that actual operation to make sure that the information is available. A lot of times, what we would see through different inquiries is that sometimes you would go into your software vendor system, you would see that the information is listed, and then you would encounter this actual critical error message. At that point, what we would have to do is work with the support team, and you all have been doing that in regards to contacting support and have them assist with reviewing that DAT file. In the DAT file, if it's determined that the information is missing, that's where the vendor would have to be notified that we see that information in the system, in the software vendor system, but we are missing that in the exported DAT file. And so they would have to assist with making sure that the information is exporting successfully. So that's just one example. So wanted to point that out in regards to, of course, making sure that you review your critical errors, and then you're able to take a look, of course, to your errors. And if you select that portion of the pie, you're able to review that information. The other thing that we usually would get questions on is related to the critical summary report. So just wanted to make sure that we clarify the date information. The dates that you enter here is related to the date of submission. So the date of submission would be listed here. So if you're looking for a specific range for that report, you're looking at the date of when those submissions were. So you'll see my example here, if I wanted to look at the time frame of when I started submitting up until the last date of submission, my range is going to cover April 29th all the way through June 16th. So that is the information that would be entered here in the dates. So not your surgery dates. This is your submission date. So just wanted to also call that out. And then also we've gotten questions related to how do we know the total number of records that are included in the submission, since we're not seeing that information here. How do we determine what is the total number of records that were included, and how can I confirm that? So we would get that question also. And the way you would do that is by generating that report, you'll see that there is a column for total records. So this is going to give you the total number of records that were in the submission file. And then it's going to give you the breakdown of how many were successfully saved to the database. And then if there are any that failed, you are going to get a number of that. And then if there were records that were included and had no changes, you would get the total number of records here. So you're able to see that raw data information using this report. So those are the common questions that we've received. So just wanted to make sure that we pointed those out as the areas to review. Okay, so, and again, for those that may not have seen this report called Critical Summary, this is the tab that will allow you to get to that report. So any DQR that you open will allow you to navigate to the Critical Summary. And so it doesn't matter which DQR you open, you will always have the accessibility of being able to get to this Critical Summary report. Okay. So that also was another area of just making sure we clarify. So let's take a look at, this is, of course, the primary procedure report. You're able to navigate to that report by the operational menu. And so let me just bring this over here so you can see. The operational reports menu is where, of course, you'll get to the majority of your reports. The only report that's not available via this link is, of course, your data quality report. That's available under your upload. So I already had this one preloaded. And so as Leanne had indicated earlier, there are additional rules that we will be adding to this report for consideration. And Kawashima is one of those rules. You'll notice here that I do have, this actually is an example where once we implement the rule, the Kawashima will be updated to be reflected as the primary procedure based on that newly implemented rule. But what I wanted to call out on this report that has been updated recently is that you're able to filter your actual operations by op type 1 and 2. So that is an area that I know that we had a recent update and that was included. So just wanted to make sure that if you did not take a look recently, please know that you're able to see that and use that to filter your cases, your operations. Okay. Let me just go to the next, everyone is familiar with, well, hopefully, the missing variable report. I went ahead and just loaded that up because I wanted to make sure that I'm able to give enough time for questions. But your missing variable report will, of course, list all of the identified variables that have been flagged as missing. And one of the main questions here has been, how do I generate a list of all of the results for this report? And the way you would do that is highlight by left clicking on your mouse and holding. And you'll see that it basically does this shading. And as you do that, you just drag it to the end. And you'll notice at the very bottom of the page, it will generate the results. And in this section, you're able to export this to either a table or to Excel. And so that's usually the common question that we receive regarding missing variable. How do I get the full list without having to just click individually? So that is the quick way for you to do that. And let me go ahead and open up the, let's see, what else did we have? We have the harvest summary. And let's see, let me go to that. Generate that in another tab. Okay, so let me go ahead and just run this. And this is a test site. And you'll see that this is a 999. So hopefully I have some information that I'm able to use. But let's generate this through June 2020. And we'll do that. And while that's running, let me also go ahead and I'm going to open this in another tab for the dashboard and have that running. One other area that I wanted to point out is that we usually get some questions on is related to, let's go back to the missing variable one moment, is related to the filters that are available. And so Specifically for the sites that are not participating with anesthesia, and let me just go ahead, and I think my test site should have anesthesia. Let me just double check. This one is turned off. So when a site is not participating in anesthesia, that you'll see the actual filter available. So this is one of the questions that had come up in the past. You will still see the filter available, but it will hide all of the anesthesia related variables. So there is an additional setting to indicate that the site participates in the STS anesthesia program. And so if that is set, it automatically will trigger that flag to then basically suppress the anesthesia variables from appearing on the list. So just wanted to highlight that. And then of course, I think the other questions that we usually get is related to mortality, and just, is there a quick way for us to see mortality? And of course, the filter is available and you're able to review that information there. Okay, so give me a second. Let me go back to harvest summary. It was giving me an issue before in my test environment, so I may have to come back to that. But those are the main areas that we would get, especially around the uploader and the data quality report. Those were a lot of the common questions that we just wanted to make sure that we highlighted. And then of course, if there are questions that you have, we can go ahead and address those questions also. So I'm actually going to pause here. So Leanne, if just for sake of time, I know that you had additional slides that we could review, and then we can get to questions. And I'll just keep the application open.
Okay. Thank you, Melanie. I'm going to share, go back to sharing my screen. Thank you so much, Melanie. I appreciate that overview. And I know a lot of you guys have seen that walkthrough before, but we appreciate your patience. We have to remember that, you know, we are presenting to a diverse group of data managers. We have some first-time data managers that we do get these questions often. We've gotten them recently. So we just wanted to make sure, you know, that we are educating the entire group, and I appreciate those of you that have been patient while we review those slides again. So thank you. So for my ending slides, I don't have a lot. It's just the typical support plan slides that you all are familiar with. Again, just a reminder to please include your participant ID with any and all communications with IQVIA and STS. It does make our life a lot easier. So again, please include your participant ID number when contacting support. Again, resources that are available to you all. You all are familiar with this information. My contact information, I'm going to leave this here on the screen. If you have any questions or needs, if you want to talk to me individually, one-on-one about your questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to schedule a call with you to talk with you. And again, if you have any database operational questions regarding access to the platform, questions regarding finance, invoices, question about your participation agreement and status, please email us at stsdb@sts.org. That's all that I have for today. I really wanted to save this last 30 minutes for you all and for your questions. So if everyone is okay, I'm going to go ahead and start tackling some questions. We have several in the inbox. And actually, before we tackle those questions, I see Kelly has raised her hand. So I'm going to unmute you, Kelly. So just you may have to unmute yourself on your end, but you are free to talk.
Hi, I have all of my donor procurements being assigned as primary index procedure. This has been an issue since September 8th, and I've received multiple emails from IQVIA support that this is indeed coded correctly and that these should be index procedures. I've still not managed to be able to resolve that issue.
Right, we are aware of that, and we are working with DCRI and IQVIA to get this. So this will be addressed in the dashboard. Know when your data goes to analysis, it will be handled correctly. Again, this is just, this is how it's currently, the logic is currently showing within the dashboard. And again, we are working to correct that. So just know that it is in process. It's not a quick fix. So, but we are working directly with IQVIA and DCRI. We needed to get clarifications on the process, or not process, but the logic. So we're working on it. So I appreciate your patience while we do work through that process. I don't know if anyone had anything else to add. Do you have any other questions, Kelly, or comments? So you're unmuted if you.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of my questions, and I've asked before about this, is our previous data quality report from DCRI notified us of any data inconsistencies, such as discharge date was earlier than the admit date, different discharge dates from the same admission, or discharge status was marked as a lie, but mortality date is recorded as within the admit to discharge dates. That I'm aware of, IQVIA doesn't have this logic built into the platform. And I think it would be helpful for new data managers, since we do have a nice diverse group of people on this call. And I know that I have been able to clean up some of my data internally to catch some of these issues, but it was helpful functionality that we had and basic functionality from the previous data quality report. Are there any plans to add this functionality? And if there aren't any plans to add that, if this goes to analysis incorrectly, how will that be analyzed on DCRI's part?
That is a great question and a great comment. Thank you for that. I know that we are working to add those inconsistency checks. We can add that. I don't know if IQVIA has anything in place behind the scenes to check for that. I don't know, Melanie, Jeanette, do you guys have any comment on that?
So this is Jeanette. Those sorts of checks are definitely possible. I believe at this point, the checks that are in place are those that are called out in the data specifications. And we can absolutely work with STS to make adjustments and improvements in those areas with regards to things like this consistency stuff. So we will double check on that. Thank you very much for raising it.
Right. And also, Kelly, one thing we're looking at also doing for future for our upgrades, we've implemented this in adult cardiac, and we're going to implement it within general thoracic. We're just wrapping up that upgrade now. We're adding on-save checks. So for these type of things, we can add into the data specification. So your software will check for these types of issues prior to saving the record or as you're entering it. So we are working to get those added, to make your life a lot easier so you can find these things before submitting the data as opposed to how things are working now. And we'll do the same thing for the congenital database for this current upgrade that we're working on. Does that make this? Is that helpful? Also, you had asked, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Kelly, but I know also you had asked about the DCRI and how they would handle that in analysis. That is a very good question and something that I can follow up with the DCRI team about. So I am happy to do that. I am making a note right now, and I will follow up with the DCRI side on how they would handle those types of inconsistencies within the data on the analysis side.
Okay.
This is Carol. I have a quick question. I thought that we had edits and checks in place, and these are the warnings and errors. They should match the same list that DCRI has already.
We do have those. Yeah, I'm checking that right now. Sorry, this is Melanie.
Okay.
So we do have, in regards to date of birth can't be later than surgery date, for example. I'm looking through the list. The admit date can't be later than the discharge date. So we do have those things. So and those are just a couple that I'm naming out. So I think, Kelly, if you're able to give some examples where you were able to identify where there should have been a consistency check. Maybe you've already logged this with the support team, but we could go ahead and take a look. But we do have consistency checks with.
We used the same, this is
Mhm.
Carol, we used the same list that DCRI had for all of our databases. So if
Yep.
there's something that's not showing up, please submit it to IQVIA as a
Mhm.
ticket, because we need to either check the logic, IQVIA will need to check the logic on that, or figure out why it's not firing for a specific patient. But IQVIA, STS had IQVIA implement all of the edits and checks that were in place at DCRI for all of the databases.
Not to monopolize the time, but where does that show up on the platform?
It should be your errors or warnings.
Under errors or warnings, and it specifically says if you have like what the error is.
Yes,
Okay.
and the actual fields, the target variable field. So that would show up on your data quality report. You also would be able to, if those validations fired, you would also see that on your harvest summary report.
Okay.
Great.
But if
Thank
you're
you,
not,
guys. Thank you.
yeah, if you're
Go
not
ahead, Carol.
seeing them, Kelly, please let IQVIA know, or if they're not coming across correctly,
Mhm.
please let IQVIA know, because sometimes the logic gets really tricky, especially when we're looking at dates and it's more than one, or more than two variables in the logic. It can get rather hairy. So with the programming, so we just, if you see something, let IQVIA know so they can check into it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, next, let's see here. We have, McCall has a question. So McCall, I think you are unmuted, so go ahead.
Hi, thank you for opening up for questions. So I have a more general question. So I have open tickets, and then we go through the process, and then one of the techs gets back to me, and we start rolling the ball as a ping pong back and forth. And I think at one point emails just stopped working. And can you please consider having a Zoom session with the tech support so I can show him what's going on my end, and the tech support can look at it, because it's very time consuming, and from my experience, many times it's been unresolved.
Thank you, McCall. I think that's a great suggestion. I know in our last call, we discussed support a lot, and we know what currently there is not working for you all. So we have been discussing, or in discussion with IQVIA, on ways to better improve the support process for you all. So I think that's a great idea, McCall. We can definitely take that back to the IQVIA support team leaders and have that discussion. So thank you for that. I think that's very helpful.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, so I don't see anyone else with their hand raised at the moment. Let's tackle some of the questions within the Q&A. Our first question, 2021 spring harvest, any date chosen yet? I know Carol and I are working on those. I know those should be available within the next week. And I think I said, I don't know if I said that last time, but we are working on that. We are finalizing those dates with IQVIA as well as DCRI. I think I don't want to say off the top of my head because I can't remember the time frame that we were looking at for the close of the congenital spring 2021 harvest.
Oh, Leanne, actually, I'm typing it up right now and sending it over to marketing. Cool. So I have the dates for spring 21 right now is March 12th for the harvest close and March 15th for the opt-out, and that will include data through December 31st.
Great. Thank you, Carol.
Yep, I'm sending it right now.
Great. That information will be posted out on the STS website, and I think we could also do, it'd be helpful if we just did a blast as well to the congenital data managers or to everyone. So thank you. Our next question, I understand where the procedure combination list is on the STS website, but does that mean that MVR isn't identifying the procedures that could be entered as combination codes for us during data submission? Thanks, Vera, for your question. I know Melanie touched on this a little bit in her presentation. The missing combination procedure warnings are included within your data quality report. And I know Melanie stated not all of these have yet been added, but the ones listed on that slide have been added, and they are working to get the remaining combination procedure codes added. I don't know if Melanie, if you had anything to add to that.
No, basically that's it. If you want to go back to that slide so that they can just see
yeah.
the specific ones. And then I believe there are 3 additional ones that will be included in another release. So these, yep, this is it. So here are the current combination procedures where if identified, you will identify it as you need to use one of these codes based on how you coded that operation, you will get a warning on the data quality report at the time of submission. So these are the identified items, and we do have 3 additional ones that we will be adding in another release.
Great, thank you, Melanie. All right, our next question.
So,
Yes.
Leanne, could I
Yes,
just
Dr.
ask,
Meyer.
you know, with the next data release is a little vague in terms of the timing, and you know, we're now a month away
December.
from. Okay.
It's this month. It's this month.
Okay, because there are a fair number of these combination codes that exist in the database.
I believe there were, and I'll bring up the document, and we're using the combinations provided by DCRI, and I want to say there were 8, but let me just double check.
8 of them.
Yeah, and so we have 6 currently implemented, and we need to add the additional 2. Let me just go back and just double check that list, but it would be this month. Those additional ones would be added in regards to the checks.
Okay.
Thank you, Melanie.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Let's see here, our next question. Will there be a code freeze for the IQVIA platform prior to us harvesting? How do we know when all updates will be completed so we can finish our harvest?
This is Jeanette. I can speak to this one. So we are reviewing the feedback items or questions that have been raised by users, whether they're issues or suggested improvements with STS on a regular basis. We are going to continue improving the platform. However, I expect that your question is really focused on issues. So are there any issues that would prevent the completion or closure of the harvest? And at this point, we do not have any issues outstanding that are preventing submissions from going in and the data being, retained as it was submitted. We have gotten feedback, and there are adjustments that we are working on to improve some of the feedback points, such as giving more upfront guidance on the combination code scenario that Melanie was just talking about. We've added some filters to the reports to allow you to focus more specifically on the set of surgeries that are a priority to you instead of, needing to look at the whole. So we have completed the ones that have been raised as a critical priority prior to the closure of the harvest, but we are certainly in active communication with STS, and we do appreciate hearing from all of you, and are going to continue improving the platform and working on enhancements based on the suggestions that we receive. That's not gonna stop. And Leanne, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. I know IQVIA is working, to get these enhancements done, by December for the combination procedure codes, and they are working hard to get that done, and we really do appreciate that. As always, as Jeanette stated, we're going to be constantly improving this platform. So not everything is going to be rolled out in December prior to the harvest. We're going to get you the primary procedure mismatch report. We're getting the combination procedures, those things that are vital to get this harvest done. So we are working on it. Thank you, Jeanette. I don't know if anyone from STS side had anything else to add.
No, I think that was said fairly. I mean, it's an evolving, databases are
Yeah.
evolving. So IQVIA is, and STS and DCRI are all working together to make sure that whatever is vital for the harvest is done, and also having awareness of the impact on sites when changes get made prior to harvest closes, and being respectful of that as well. I think you all covered it nicely.
Thank you. All right, our next question, will COVID-19 positive patients be excluded from mortality analysis? If so, what is the time frame for the COVID positive test to meet exclusion criteria? Carol, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to punt this one to you. I know you've been working more closely with the surgeon leaders for the COVID-19 analysis. Do you have?
Sure, I can take this
Can
one.
you respond to this one? Yeah.
Yep. So this is Carol. Right now, all COVID-19 positive patients, regardless of what yes was checked, will be excluded, and regardless of the time frame of that positive test. Once we get data in and we can analyze it internally a little bit further, there may be decisions made regarding timeframes as to when those patients should be excluded. But for right now, all positive COVID patients are excluded. And it should be noted that for congenital, it was around 0.5% of patients, which is a very small number, that will be excluded from analysis related to positive COVID testing. That's all I got.
Great. Sorry, I was on mute.
That's okay.
Thank you, Carol. I see McCall's hand up. I'm going to unmute her, see if she has additional questions. Sorry, McCall,
Yeah.
You're unmuted. There you go.
Yeah, so when will be the last IQVIA update before we submit the data on January 15th? I start to be a little nervous about it because, yeah.
So this is Jeanette. So the last planned release that we have prior to the harvest close scheduled in mid-January is on December 30th. If something comes up that's an urgent feedback point or something that needs to be addressed, then we will look at making that adjustment on an as-needed basis. So I don't want to tell you that there's not anything that's going to come up after that, but everything that we have planned that we're aware of right now, and we do appreciate hearing from all of you. So don't feel that, me saying this means that you shouldn't reach out. If you're seeing something that you're concerned about, please do continue to reach out to the support mailbox for issues or concerns. But the last planned release is currently December 30th.
So that actually leaves us with the max of 11 days to work on.
Well, the only change that's planned is the combination codes, the 2 additional combination codes. All other items are addressed. So we have shared out what is scheduled for that window.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Do you have McCall?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Did you have additional questions? We have other hands, so I just wanted to make sure I gave everyone the right to, or their turn to speak.
No, I can just tell you that the 365 follow-up dates is still not updated on my end. So I don't know if that's just local on my report, but yeah.
Yeah, I know IQVIA is working on that. I believe, I don't know Mel or Jeanette, but I do know just know that will not impact your analysis. That warning or error would not have any impact on your analysis when the data goes over to DCRI. But will be resolved.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, McCall. All right, our next question is to Kelly. Kelly, you're unmuted.
Yes, I think that's a little concerning about a release being done on the 30th and then us having 11 business days, I think is what Mikhail said, to finalize our harvest is a bit concerning. And I go back to that initial question of mine with the donor procurements being assigned as primary. And being reassured that at DCRI, they will be excluded from analysis. However, I'm not seeing that on the IQVIA platform, and I think we need to be confident that what we're seeing on the platform is what will be analyzed at DCRI, is that we know what our data are going to look like. So will there be plans then to push the harvest back again?
No, this is Carol. No, there's no plans to push the harvest back. I understand the concern and that not having it match exactly on your dashboard on the IQVIA platform what's going into analysis, but it's important to remember that the analysis is performed by DCRI, not IQVIA, and IQVIA is not changing any of your data. So the algorithms that DCRI have in place that have been used in previous analyses with any updates that have come from the task force have been in place, and that's what will be used. It's unfortunate if it's not matching 100% at harvest close, but I think it should be comforting, at least somewhat comforting, to know that the analysis in your data is not being changed and the analysis is being done at DCRI. That's when you'll have two separate reports. One is your raw data and the other is the analyzed data that will come back from DCRI. But with all that being said, we certainly understand the frustration at sites when things aren't matching exactly. And I guess it would be good to hear from IQVIA the transplant issue that is being said that Kelly's bringing up and that others have had. Is there a plan for that? And maybe I've missed it, but is that in a release that's coming out?
And Carol, this is Melanie. I actually need clarification because I thought earlier I heard something about assignment on the dashboard report. Kelly, is the assignment happening on the dashboard report or is it happening on the primary procedure report? I think that's where I got lost.
I'd have to look back. This has been an ongoing issue since September 8th. So I would have to go back and look.
The dashboard.
To see if it's the dashboard or the primary procedure, but it's assigning them as primary procedures. So when I filter out and I look at all of my primary procedures, initially I was able to determine that the discrepancy were the donor procurements. However, I submitted again just last week, and now I'm seeing I can't figure out where the issue is with the primary procedure. Now I've got a totally different mismatch with the primary procedure. And I sent a ticket last week about that issue as well, so.
Okay, so I will follow back up with our support team and we can get in contact with you just to make sure that we just take a look at that specific issue in regards to us, because the dashboard does not assign primary procedures on. So I think maybe there's a disconnect for me. So I just want to make sure that go ahead, Leanne.
Yeah, Kelly's referring to the index operation.
Index operation. Okay.
Yeah, the index operation in the dashboard.
And, so Melanie, if you could maybe, or somebody from support could work with Kelly to help figure out what the issue is. But I also want to say, not to minimize or not discount anybody's concerns. When DCRI was the data warehouse, it wasn't perfect either. And we still had a lot of issues with your data quality reports. We had a lot of complaints about what was coming back on the data quality reports, incorrect programming and things like that. So I know our goal is perfection, but we also have to come to an understanding that we've never had it. So we are working towards that, and IQVIA and DCRI and STS are all on the same page with the need for perfection. But we're thankful that you're staying patient with us and we understand how frustrating it is. But in reality, we have to remember that DCRI neither provided that either, didn't provide that either for your DQR. So we are working towards that and understand. So I don't know that extending the harvest is going to help anybody anywhere unless there's some major issue with getting your data in and IQVIA not able to accept your data or get it over to DCRI at this time, because I feel that all the reports are there. there are some issues with them. IQVIA, DCRI, and STS are all working to make sure that the logic is correct at IQVIA. But if there's some major issue with that you feel is a no-go for harvest close, then that's what we would need to hear. Does that help? Okay.
Carol, it's Leslie. Real quick, also, if people are waiting to harvest until after that last submission, in my opinion, it's really doing a disservice to all of us, because we need people to use those reports and provide feedback so that if there are major things going on and we do need to push back harvest or know about that, we don't have that feedback until the very end. And so even though 11 days seems scary, it's not like our whole 4 years are these combination procedures. We need to continue to keep doing this and provide feedback.
Mm-hmm. Great point. All right. Anyone else from the panelists want to comment? Going once, going twice. I know we're getting close to time, so I'm going to run through some more questions that we have. From Heidi, seems the critical summary report should be compounded with the uploader report, seen as it is chronicling the uploaded data. Any way to combine some of these reports to minimize the number of reports where you have to run and analyze? And that's some good feedback. I know we've discussed that on previous calls with IQVIA about combining reports, and I believe they are, looking into that and looking at ways to make that better. So I don't know if anyone from IQVIA wants to add.
This is Jeanette. Just that feedback point has been echoed by other team members. So we appreciate you raising that, and you are not alone in that suggestion. So as Leanne mentioned, yes, we are looking into some options for that. Yep,
that is on our list of, from everyone. IQVIA does have a list of all of the enhancements that have been requested and feedback. So I do know that is on the list. Our next question from Jen, on the procedure mismatch report, is it true that a PA band should be the primary procedure when arch repair, PA bands, and ASD have been done? I can't find any rules that say this. Jen, I don't know the answer to this question off the top of my head. I don't know if any of the surgeon leaders want to, feel free to chime in. I would have to look at the rules, to be honest with you. I don't know that off the top of my head, or if anyone from the core group wants to chime in.
Yeah, I'm not a surgeon, but I think the PA band has the highest stat mortality score, so it wouldn't qualify for any other exception that I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Meyer. All right. Our next question. With previous submissions with DCRI, the procedure mismatches were cleaned up, and now IQVIA is returning a large number of mismatches from 2016 and 19. Makes me wonder if things have been coded correctly. The biggest difference here, in the previous submissions with DCRI, the procedure mismatches were cleaned up, and now IQVIA is returning a large number of mismatches. So if you submitted that data to DCRI and you did not make any changes, you kept your primary procedure and you didn't change the primary procedure as it would be done in analysis, then IQVIA would still be reporting that mismatches, because DCRI changed that data in analysis. When your data comes over to IQVIA, they're not going to change any of your data. I don't know if I'm understanding that correctly. I don't know.
I think you got it right, Leanne. It sounds like maybe Jen can add in, or maybe she can wants to unmute herself. This is Carol. It sounds like she is thinking that the mismatches were cleaned up at DCRI, so they should also be cleaned up in IQVIA. Right. But if you didn't make that cleanup from the DCRI analyzed report within your vendor software, then those mismatches still exist. And so if you re-upload those same cases without making the changes, then they will still appear in the IQVIA mismatch report.
Yep. Thank you. So
they're likely. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to say there are likely also some new rules, I guess, that have been added to primary procedure rules over time since 2016. And so it could also be perhaps that there are new rules that are being applied.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. All right. My next question, will IQVIA be sending DCRI our DAT files? If not, will you be sending them updated demographics records for patients who had surgery prior to the current 4-year window? Specifically, will DCRI be able to update date of last follow-up for legacy cases? So IQVIA, I don't know if Melanie or Jeanette, do you guys want to explain what you got or how you guys will be sending it? You're not sending the actual DAT files. But
We can.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I can answer part of this, but I'm not totally sure about a piece of it. So we, IQVIA, will not send exactly the DAT file format. We do take the records that were successfully loaded into the database that did not have a critical validation firing on them, preventing the submission. So we will take all surgical records or all operations and all associated data, the demographics data, and all of that information from the DAT file, and we will send the entire database, including patients who had surgery prior to the current 4-year window. All of that will be sent to DCRI, including updated demographics records. What I'm not clear about is if the demographics records were updated, is the date of last follow-up included in that table? I thought that was a separate follow-up section. So I'm not sure how you could have a demographics update only. But we can double check on that. If there's anyone that knows exactly what that means, if you could help weigh in there, I would appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think, Jeanette, you answered the question exactly. You know, you'll be sending that updated demographics, so that 365 would be updated on the DCRI end. Okay, let's take one more question from McCall. We're over, so I'm going to take this last comment from McCall.
I'm really sorry, but to ask another question and to be so vocal, but you just said that we're going to have to submit the data of the end of the second half of 2020 in March. Will we get the report back by then so we can learn what's, you know, what we did or if we did right when we submitted the data in January? Like, will we get any feedback, especially after what you, Carol, just went over?
Yeah. That's a good question, and and IQVIA can probably speak on the timeline better, but our hope is that we'll have that back. It's the first time exchanging the files for congenital between IQVIA and DCRI, so there's a lot of programming that goes on at both places to both send IQVIA, for IQVIA to send, for DCRI to receive, and then for DCRI to send and IQVIA to receive the files back and forth. So the anticipated timeline, it should work, but you know, there's always the chance with all that programming that there can be issues that arise. But we've learned a lot from the adult cardiac and the general thoracic file flow between both IQVIA and DCRI, that hopefully some of the issues that first occurred could be mitigated with the congenital group, with the congenital data. But I think we can always revisit that timeline in March, because we don't want you to feel that you're sending data, not getting anything back, to make sure that what you sent is, that you're comfortable with that. So I think a timeline, you know, our close dates they'll be posted, but they can always be changed. And if we get a lot of feedback that suggests that the data managers need more time, then we certainly will look at that with the task force and our surgeon leadership come March or the end of February. We would have no more information by then for sure about where the data is at after the harvest close in January.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And also, just to add to that, I know IQVIA and DCRI, they're also exchanging task data. So it's not like we're going to wait until, testing out this process right until the harvest close. IQVIA and DCRI are exchanging test data for congenital. So, we're working to make sure the process runs as smoothly as possible. But as Carol said, we may run into some bumps along the way, and we'll work through those. So, so that's all that I had. I'm tired. I'm sorry, guys. So we do have a good amount of questions still in the Q&A. I know we're after. I know I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I have another call that I need to get on, but we do have these questions. I will have a copy of these questions, and I will go through and respond to questions as I can and get a response to you individually. Also, IQVIA will have these questions as well. So I will work to get your questions addressed. So please feel like, I don't want you to feel like your questions are not going to get answered. So that's in regards there. Can anyone, IQVIA, STS, can we take, I think that's all. We don't have any more questions or comments. So thank you everyone for joining the call today. I appreciate you guys being here and voicing your feedback and your concerns. That's why we have these town halls. So please know that we hear you. We hear your frustrations and your concerns, and we are working. It's an ongoing process, and we're working to improve things. So please be patient. And as long as we all continue to work together, we'll get through this. We understand it's difficult and frustrating. So please be patient with us as we all work together, and we're working just as hard as we can to improve things for you guys. So with that, thank you to our core members, our surgeon leaders, and STS and IQVIA staff for joining me today. I hope you guys all have a great week and have a happy holiday season. Thanks for joining. I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Leanne. Thanks, IQVIA and our core group.
Thank you, everyone. Yes.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.